I've been playing a lot of CS2 lately, and with the Season 8 FACEIT ELO reset, it's brought out a ton of players that haven't been playing much recently or have been active for a very long time, as well as brand new players who are trying out FACEIT for the first time. Now, FACEIT has had such a high influx of players that the platform was actually broken for a little while due to it breaking their all-time player records across the board. Now, with this influx of new players, there's been quite a large amount of players that have been quite remarkable. And I actually lost 7 straight placement matches with some of these individuals. However, after I got out of my placement ELO, we actually won our next 9 out of 11 games. Now, that 7-game loss streak actually had me contemplating retiring CS2 entirely. Now, this video isn't necessarily going to be about the FACEIT season itself, but it really got me thinking about how bad the cheating situation has been, not just in CSGO, but other multiplayer and competitive games. Now, I have 3,000 hours in CSGO, so I'm not going to sit here and act like I deserve to be a level 10 or I know every single thing about the game. But when you're supposed to be paired with players on a similar level as you, it's not hard to realize when something is off about some of the players in your matches. Whether it's the 100-hour Andy who plays like a 10,000-hour player, or the guy who just happens to swing every angle without clearing anything else and shooting you in the head. Cheating in games is much more common than you think, even with something like FACEIT that has a kernel level anti-cheat. But I wanted to go over some of the different types of cheats that people use in this game and other games as well. I also want to clarify that this is not me bitching or griping about CS in particular. I still plan on trying to grind to level 10 FACEIT, but just reviewing the current situation that a lot of games are in with the cheating situation. Now, the first type of cheating that I want to talk about is non-invasive cheating, and this type of cheating can be considered not really cheating by some users, but it's cheating that doesn't require any hardware or software but can still have a negative impact on game integrity. It's often hard to detect unless accounts are researched and looked into and manual bans are implemented due to there being a lack of evidence, or people just don't view it maliciously at all. Now, the first type of non-invasive cheating that I wanted to talk about is smurfing. Smurfing is when a player purposely plays on an account of lower elo or rank to get into matches with players that are not as skilled as him. Some people think that this is cheating. Some people may not consider this cheating. I definitely think it is cheating when it's done in a competitive sense. But a lot of it kind of depends on, player intention with this sort of thing. If a player purposely goes all the way down to the lowest elo to start a grind or ladder his way back up to the top with good intentions, I could see, from one standpoint where it may not be considered cheating because it's not malicious, but it still has a negative impact on those players of lower skill that have to go up against a player of that caliber, whether that be, a FACEIT level 10, somebody who's maybe ranked like SSL or Grand Champion Rocket League, any sort of thing where, you're creating an unfair advantage because you're purposely playing against players of lower skill. Now, the reason smurfing is, so detrimental to all games as it prevents player bases from growing, and it widens the skill gap from the top to the bottom. Games are more fun when they're competitive, but smurfing not only has a negative impact on competitive integrity, but also the overall impression of the game by players of all skill levels. How many times have you played a game where, there's a player in your lobby that's obviously way more skilled than everybody else and probably doesn't belong in that elo? Like, it's frustrating. You're trying to get better. You want to get to a point where you're at that level, but you're not quite at that level yet, and it makes it, very difficult to deal with that sort of thing. Now, one other example of a non-invasive style of cheat is called boosting, which, again, most people don't really view as cheating, but it still has a negative impact on game integrity. The crazy thing is, despite being listed as a bannable offense by FACEIT, you have pro players and other people that are actively live streaming this type of cheating. I know no action will be taken against these players due to their status in the community, nor do I personally really care. But again, it can have a negative impact on game integrity for these players of lower skill. I genuinely feel bad for the level 1s and 2s who want to queue into a game against players of similar skill level to them, and then boom, you're put into a lobby going up against Majila and JL. Now, while I would perceive it as a challenge and use it as an opportunity to get better, not every player is going to have the same mentality and have a negative experience. And I'm sure we've all played with, those players that get irrationally angry or upset when these sort of things happen, and it's just not fun for anybody. So those are the 2 most common types of non-invasive cheating. I want to talk about really quickly the invasive methods of cheating. Invasive methods of cheating are cheating that require some sort of software or hardware, and every game has its own specific style of invasive cheats. Like, for example, in CS you have spin botting, in Rocket League you have auto dribbler and trajectory and all sorts of things. But I'm going to go over more of a generic type of cheat which can be used in most games. And despite it having an external, software or hardware, for whatever reason, AI or current anti-cheat systems are still unable to detect them. Wall hacking is probably the most common type of invasive cheating, and it's pretty universal across any type of game that involves player interaction. And it's as simple as it sounds. You're able to see the outlines of player models through walls, which is allowed through, software that integrates into the game you're playing. I'm not going to sit here and understand, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to understand the technical aspects of how cheats get implemented into games. I've never cheated in a game before, and I have no intentions of ever cheating in a game. But it's one of those types of cheats that's difficult to detect because it's not really tied to any sort of statistical analysis like reaction time. And players using it have to be really obvious to be caught with a manual ban. That's where we get the term soft walling, often tied to players who are actively using wall hacks but don't look at player models through the wall and conceal that they're playing like normal without the additional information. Now, what's crazy is that despite having, different anti-cheats and review processes and things, this doesn't just, limit to like public matchmaking and, normal servers. Back in 2024, there was a player called Cons who got banned from the European Pro League after manual reviews because it was questionable gameplay, which was likely due to soft walling. He could have had radar or other things, which I'll talk about in a minute, but eventually ended up, resulting in the disqualification of his team. And to be honest, you just have to feel bad for his team at that point because it's like, they probably didn't know that he was cheating or doing anything sus, but now they have to deal with the consequences of not being involved in the event. And fortunately for the community, he's never going to play competitive CS again, despite, earning a couple $1,000s in the short span of his career. And I think the funniest instance of somebody using walling is the infamous Clara meme, where streamer Miss2 Gemini was obviously using walls on her stream, and then she proceeds to blatantly blame it on the quote-unquote Clara who was on her computer and put them on herself, which I think is just hilarious. But it doesn't matter if it's in the professional scene or the casual, competitive scene. This is happening everywhere, and it's obviously a problem. Now, radar is another cheat, kind of similar to walling, where you can use the software or hardware to get enemies available on your minimap. This cheat is another one that's, one of those most difficult to detect, as it could be used in a way that's almost impossible to identify without a manual review. And there's not really any like data analysis that you can use to kind of detect it like you can with like reaction time and things like that. So you're pretty much just shit out of luck unless AI can, sort of solve that sort of thing. And the symptoms of people using radar is almost identical to the same as what they would be doing if they were soft walling, where they're, taking positions where people aren't just having like high clutch percentages, things like that. So maybe that's a data point that, you could use to kind of detect that thing. But most of the time, it's only going to be a manual review sort of thing, and that's it. Now, the last type of cheating that I'll talk about is aim lock or aimbot. Two different things, but obviously very close to one another. Aim locking refers to a cheat in which a player can use a hotkey to snap to a target's player model, most oftentimes the head, but can be other part of the body. Aimbotting is typically a slightly more advanced cheat, which can look a few different ways. It can be done via recoil scripts, like games like Rust. Could be, similar to aim lock, where it just automatically snaps to a player's head or part of their body when they're firing bullets. But this covers the main majority of the types of, aimbotting. These type of cheats are pretty easily identifiable through data analysis and pretty easily catchable. Now, the flip side to that is that people, that are using like aim hacking or aimbotting style cheats, they can actually like dial back the response times to, more human-like levels to where it's not so obvious. We all know that Deathmatch right now has an insane botting problem that, the bots are clearly using aim hacking. Some of them not so great, and then some of them are just the best players that we've ever seen. But the fact that can make them, that people can make the cheats more mimicable to actual player reactions is just going to make it that much harder for not only normal anti-cheat to catch them, but also the AI anti-cheat that companies are starting to talk about as well. Now, this brings me to my last point of, discussing the AI anti-cheat, where, we've had Valve and other companies come out and they'd be like, oh, well, our AI anti-cheat's gonna, be a 99.99% detection rate on, all sorts of cheats and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, in Valve's case, it's been 2 years since they've announced that. And we're having some of the, I believe, lowest ban rates that we've ever seen with, CS. And I'm sure that's the case in other games too. But my question is that if the AI anti-cheat is so good, will it be able to appropriately, improve and learn from people that are cheating? Because if the AI continually learns and improves off of each other, won't people start using AI to cheat as well? Because then the question comes to, you know, in the future, as AI gets more advanced within these type of games, either the cheating will become so rampant that it's impossible to be just a normal player, and you'll start to see like esports leagues pop up that are only people that are cheating as opposed to only people that are legit. Or on the flip side, AIs would just get so, you know, they would learn and improve off of each other so deep that cheating would just become, you know, incomprehensible between a real player and eliminate it entirely. It's really hard to say, you know, what'll actually happen with that, you know, kind of thing until we get to that point. Right now, we're kind of in like that unknown stage where nobody's really going to understand and comprehend like what's going to happen at this point in time. And we really won't find out until years down the road. A student at the Zhejiang College in China named Ming Tao actually wrote a paper on this, which I briefly read through, and it was pretty interesting to me. He essentially speaks about the exact same question I had, which just asks, you know, can AI anti-cheat nullify the accuracy of the AI cheating? And he speaks about why traditional cheats are so hard to detect through use of things like DMA and having cheats run through a second PC that can't be detected by OS and most times can only be caught through manual reviews like I spoke about. But players that use AI cheats are merely mimicking real playing styles through that advanced learning, which would make it impossible for the, you know, traditional anti-cheat to detect, which you would need AI anti-cheat for. But the real question is, can, you know, once the AI learns so deeply advanced that it almost mimics a normal player, will people be able to cheat anymore at all? And in short, we don't know. So for the meantime, and probably the foreseeable future, gaming is cooked. We might not see any considerable change in the cheater occurrence in modern gaming anytime soon. And I mean, again, who knows what the future is going to look like in 5 years, but I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think about the AI anti-cheat thing. I know, like I said, it hasn't really made any foreseeable impact now, but it could have a foreseeable impact and a noticeable impact in the future. But at this point in time, we have no idea. If you guys have stuck around this long, feel free to like the video and consider subscribing. I plan on posting some more like analysis and gaming content and just various different things that, you know, just covers all aspects of the gaming community. I'll be doing a face it level 10 grind as well, so I'll probably post some videos, you know, doing that sort of thing here over the next couple weeks. But again, if you guys enjoyed, feel free to like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.